Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
So the last 2 weeks, I have had the opportunity to go to Dallas on 2 different occasions to speak to some really amazing advisors with the same company. And I go back in a couple weeks to Dallas and speak, one more time. On these trips, a couple of leaders from the Possibility Company have come with me. And they're incredible. And one of these leaders in particular, we were talking yesterday at lunch about her journey throughout her life of finally getting to a place in her life where she felt like, you know what? There's nothing outside of me that I need to have worth and to be whole. And she said that's been a huge journey of hers, because she said for most of her life, and I could totally relate to this because this is how I felt most of my life, it's like this pursuit of more. And whatever that means, more money, more stability, more success, more recognition, more love, and
More real estate, more land.
more businesses, more followers.
Yeah.
And you think that like, oh, the next more or the next milestone is when it's going to all click and I'll finally feel fulfilled. I'll finally feel like I'm enough. I'll finally feel like I have worth. It's like, and she and I got to talking about how it actually ends up becoming this, we called it the endless pursuit of more and the endless pursuit of nothing to some degree. And how both of us shared our own stories of how painful it was to do that, to ultimately realize there's no such thing. Like you'll never, it's not out there. Like it's an inside job. It has to come from within, that you already are enough. You already have worth. And that doesn't mean that you're everything you could be. That doesn't mean that there's some areas of your life that you might not want to improve, right? That you're not happy about. And that there is also nothing wrong with pursuing more. But maybe it's really useful that we define what more means in a way that's important to us and the place that we're pursuing it from. Because if the place that I'm pursuing more from is because I feel like I have to compete with other people, I'm in comparison with other people, and it's going to finally make me feel whole and enough. And if the things that I'm pursuing more of are mostly focused on, external, like validation of wealth, success, things, yeah, that might be a really empty, hollow pursuit. However, if some of the things I'm pursuing, that if the more is more fulfillment, more impact, more purpose, and you could still have the success and the money, and if the place I'm pursuing it from isn't so that I'll finally feel whole and I'll finally be enough, it's like, no, I want to continue to pursue more because I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to see what's possible. I want to continue to push the limits of my potential and help other people. And I think it's such it's really a tricky trap even for families, because it's not even about when you have children. It's not just about pursuing more for you. It's also sometimes I think we get in the pursuit of more for our children. It's like, well, they've got to be signed up for more activities. They got to be on more club teams. They've got to have more clothes, more access to social media to keep up with. So it's like the pursuit of more it's already overwhelming in your own life. And then you factor in your significant other and then all of your children. It can get crazy.
I have so many different thoughts as you're talking about, wow, where do I want to even take this right now? Something that's interesting to me to think about is, I don't know why I'm fascinated about this, but I am, just the differences that families have experienced over the last 100 years, 120 years, how much different family life looks than it does today. And when I think back, 100 let's just say 120 years ago, around the year 1920, it was like, or sorry, around the year 1900, in the late 1800s, it was like life was so different and so much simpler in a way. And I don't know that I would say that people today are any more happy than they were then, but life's just so different. Like the actual data is such that it's like the average home size in like 2015 here in the United States, like 2,500 square feet. And in 1900, that number was more like, I can't remember exactly, like 1,000. So it's like bigger houses, bigger, nicer cars. Like they didn't even have cars then. Like cars were just starting to be developed. And so I'm like, all of these things, do they make family life better? Do they make us happier? Some things definitely make life easier, but are we any more happy than we, like when you have more and you're pursuing more?
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that. What it made me think of, I don't know, rewind 100 years ago, even rewind 200 years, which not that long ago. How much more could you pursue even if you wanted to? Like imagine you have no, the internet doesn't exist. You don't have TV. You don't have phones. In some, now, granted, you could still pursue more things and more stuff, but not as easily. Amazon packages weren't coming to your house.
So true.
You couldn't pursue more external validation. You couldn't compare yourself more. I mean, you could compare yourself to like probably your family members and whatever, whoever lived in your little town. So it's like there just wasn't even as much available to pursue. And today I think we don't even know how to deal with it. It's like the amount of things that are just like bombarding us as families that we just are on our heels all the time playing defense and just doing our best to like, say yes to everything because we think we should. And sometimes when I think all the time for me, I'm always looking up the etymology of words and where they come from and where they originate because I'm just fascinated with language and it's so much of what we do with our clients at the Possibility Company. And interestingly enough, the etymology of the word more, it comes from Old English, mara. It traces back to Proto-Germanic, I think miso or meso. And even further, it says to Proto-Indo-European, me. So originally, more had nothing to do with accumulation. It was about an increase in magnitude. It was actually about becoming greater. So the original etymology of the word more always had to do with like greatness and becoming great. And over time, we've turned it into, again, more money, more stuff, more volume. But the root meaning was actually closer to expansion, growth. And so again, I think back to where we started this with, more isn't the enemy, I don't think. Maybe it's our definition of more and like the place from which we're pursuing it. Because yes, if we're in the pursuit of just more money, more stuff, more things, I think that could be a pretty hopeless, dangerous path. But if it's like more expansion, more growth, more greatness, then I think there's some real usefulness. And I've found in my own life, though, sometimes I get so caught up in the pursuit of more money, more volume, more success, I don't have a lot of capacity left in the pursuit of more in the sense of like purpose, fulfillment, greatness, expansion.
I've talked about this on the podcast before, but maybe not. I'm going to take this in a different direction because I feel like I was just talking to someone about this experience yesterday. I'm like, oh, this totally applies to what we're talking about. Because I do think, well, okay, I'm just going to tell a little story. So Chris and I, as you may or may not know, we have had some challenges in our marriage. We were separated when, like 17 years ago for a couple of months. And we built our marriage back from there into what is today and our family and everything. But about that same time, as we were kind of rebuilding, we also foreclosed on homes. We had cars repossessed. Chris was changing careers. Like, it was a low point for us, for sure, in a lot of different ways. And I think we decided that we were going to stay married. We were going to create this like epic family. And I think a lot of that, so we were on that path, but I think we were also, not I think we for sure, we're also on this path of like, we need to dig ourselves out of this financial hole from those things I just mentioned, foreclosures, repos, whatever. And I think for many years we were in that like digging out of the hole mode where it was like, we need more money. And we legitimately, you could argue, we did need more money at that time. But I think after a while, it had just kind of become like our mode of operation is that we were like continuing to just operate in that way of like more. So around this time, here's the story I wanted to tell. We were listening to this podcast by our friend Spence, and in this podcast, he talked about how so often we are consumed with how we are going to build like our kingdoms, like the Chris and Melissa Smith kingdom, and what is that going to look like, and how are we going to have more? And as he was speaking, I was like, I felt like that because that had been the conversation because we had been working towards that for a long time because we hadn't had that. But the thing that he said next was the thing that I was like, it like hit me. I remember telling Chris about this podcast episode and just like crying because it just like hit me in the heart. Do you remember this at all?
Yeah, totally remember. I think I know exactly what you're going to say.
Okay, say it.
Spence had this download from God that God was basically like, hey, you're always asking me how to build Spence's kingdom, but you never are asking me what you can do to build my kingdom. And then that's when you had that thought of like praying like, oh, what if it's not about building my kingdom? What can I do to build God's kingdom?
Yeah. And that like changed, I don't know. I had never looked at my life that way. And so I feel like this could be applicable to all believers in different religions, but like looking even beyond our own little family and what we're building and looking out and being like, okay, are there other kingdoms to be built and other people to be served and other things to be done?
Yeah, I love that, Melissa. And I also think it's a really interesting tie even to this idea that God can make more of us than we could ever make of our own. It's like in the idea of more, it's like, well, who could help us become more than God?
Yeah, totally.
So I think sometimes it's really useful to just step back and reflect as a family and individuals and just like, hey, what's this all for? Not that you have to come up with anything negative or wrong about the situation, but just like, okay, yeah, what is this all for? And am I still leaning my ladder against a building that I'll be happy when I get to the top of? Because yeah, originally more meant becoming greater, but somewhere, yeah, along the way, we've kind of reduced it to just having more, pursuing more. So maybe it's an opportunity to just reflect as a family and just say, man, is there any areas for us to really reflect on this personally as a family? Like, how can we put as much energy into becoming more and becoming greater than just having more?
Love it.
All right, so that is it for today's episode of the Family Brand Podcast.
But before you go, we have something fun for you.
Yeah, like if you've ever wondered, okay, so how's our family culture actually doing? We've got an incredible quiz for that.
Good news, it's quick, it's free, and when you're done with that quiz, we'll even email you this awesome PDF full of practical ways to strengthen your family culture right away.
So all you have to do is go to familybrand.com/quiz, take the quiz, grab the PDF.
We'll see you next time.